All right, so we've got this investor presentation from Reliance. You know,
The
Reliance.
company behind those geophones.
Yeah, exactly. Those phones are everywhere these days. And it turns out they've hit this huge EE milestone.
Huge is an understatement.
They're the first Indian company to cross a market cap of $250 billion.
It's impressive, to say the least. $250 billion, that's not just about size. That represents the sheer value they've created.
For their shareholders, you mean?
Exactly. And it's been a consistent effort over the years. They haven't gotten here by accident.
So what's the secret sauce? This presentation keeps mentioning these rights issues, bonus issues. Sounds a bit like, financial jargon to me.
Well, in essence, Reliance has a history of rewarding its investors. And these rights issues, bonus issues, they're ways of giving back, letting shareholders share in the growth.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're not just talking about growth, they're delivering it.
Precisely. And that brings us to the real meat of this presentation, their so-called next wave of value creation.
Okay, lay it on me.
They're structuring their future around three main areas. They call them the three pillars of growth. And the first one, I think you might be familiar with this, Reliance Retail.
Reliance Retail. Wait, is that like those giant supermarkets I saw in Mumbai? They had everything.
You got it. We're talking about a massive network here, almost 19,000 stores all across India. And it's not just physical
They're
stores.
online too.
Big time.
Hmm.
Huge online presence. We're talking 300 million registered customers. You've probably even been in one yourself.
Yeah, their reach is incredible.
Mhm.
But how does a company become that dominant in a market as big and diverse as India?
It's a good question. Reliance Retail, they understand the Indian consumer. They've mastered this balance of catering to value-conscious shoppers.
So people looking for deals?
Yes. But they also cater to those who want higher-end aspirational products.
Something for everyone.
Exactly. And they've been focusing on three key areas: grocery, fashion and lifestyle, and what they call deep tech capabilities.
Deep tech. Okay, now you're just using buzzwords. What does that even mean, like in a grocery store?
You're right to call me out on the jargon. It means they're using things like artificial intelligence, data analytics, all to improve your shopping experience.
To make it better, how?
Imagine walking into a store and you get recommendations tailored to you. Or your online shopping cart predicts what you need before you even know it.
Okay, so it's not just about having a ton of stuff. It's about using technology to make the entire shopping experience smoother, more enjoyable.
Reliance understands that in today's world, convenience is key. And they're using deep tech to deliver that, along with personalization.
It's like having a personal shopper, but it's an algorithm. But let's move on to their second pillar of growth here. What's next?
All right, so we've got this retail giant, but Reliance doesn't stop there, right?
Not even close.
Their second pillar of growth is Reliance Digital Services. What is that exactly? Is it just like selling more geophones?
It's much bigger than just phones. Think of it this way. Reliance Digital Services, with Jio at the helm, they're leading India's digital revolution. They're not just providing the connection.
What else are they doing? They're building the whole digital ecosystem.
Okay, now you're making me feel behind the times. What does that even look like, this digital ecosystem?
Well, they've got a massive subscriber base. For one,
How massive are we talking?
490 million people for their digital home services. That makes them one of the biggest players in the world.
Wow.
And they're not slowing down. They're rolling out 5G across India.
Yeah, I feel like I'm hearing about 5G everywhere I turn these days, but isn't that, like, years away still?
Not for Reliance. They claim to have already deployed over 85% of India's 5G radio cells.
85%. That's insane. So they're really laying the groundwork for this whole new era of connectivity.
Exactly. And get this, they're not just using off-the-shelf technology, they're developing their own 5G technology in-house.
Their own WN 5G tech. That's next level. So they're not just providing the service, they're building the technology behind it too. It's like they're creating their own little digital empire over there.
You're catching on. And here's where things get really interesting. They're weaving this whole digital thing into their media entertainment arm as well. Remember GeoCinema?
GeoCinema, yeah, I think I saw an ad or something. Didn't they stream the IPL this year?
They did, and they crushed it. GeoCinema broke viewership records during IPL 2024.
Really? How many people were watching?
Over 620 million Indians tuned in. It was the most watched live stream event globally.
Wow. That's like more people than the entire population of a lot of countries.
It is, and it really highlights this key part of Reliance's strategy. They're creating this closed-loop ecosystem.
What do you mean by that?
They own both the content through their media companies, and they own the pipes, the infrastructure. So they can deliver all this high-quality content straight to consumers and at really good prices.
So they control everything from creation to delivery. It's like they've found the secret formula for digital domination. But hold on, we've covered retail, digital services. What's left? What's the third pillar in this whole Reliance empire?
The third pillar. This one's interesting. This is the one that might actually change the world. It's their move into new energy.
New energy. Hold on, are we talking solar panels and wind turbines now? Is Reliance going green?
They are. And it's a big bet, a 75,000 crore rupee investment, to be exact. Their goal is to create a self-reliant green economy for India. And it all starts with solar.
Solar power in India. That's interesting, but isn't that a risky move? I mean, that technology is changing so fast, and it's still pretty expensive, right?
It's definitely a bold move, no doubt. There are risks. But Reliance, they're not just dipping their toes in the water. They're diving in head first. They're building what they call an integrated solar value chain.
Okay, hold on right there. Integrated solar value chain. Did we miss a chapter in Business 101? What does that even mean?
It sounds more complicated than it is.
Hmm.
Instead of just focusing on one part of solar, like making the panels, they want to control the entire process from start to finish.
The whole shebang.
Exactly. They'll be involved in everything from getting the raw materials for those panels to actually generating and distributing the power.
So they're creating like their own solar-powered ecosystem. It's like they took a page out of their digital playbook. Control every step, get rid of the middleman, and be as efficient as possible.
You got it. And they're moving quickly. They're aiming to start producing solar PV modules by the end of this year. They're even building this massive gigafactory for it.
Oh, God, Gigafactory. Okay, that just sounds excessive at this point, but tell me more. What's so special about this factory?
Well, it's designed to be super scalable. They can ramp up production from 10 gigawatts to a massive 20 gigawatts, depending on what they need. And just like their 5G tech, they're not just using off-the-shelf technology here. They're putting a lot of resources into research and development, both in India and Singapore, to make their own high-efficiency solar panels.
So they're not just building a factory, it's like a solar innovation hub or something. This is starting to sound pretty impressive. But what about the technology itself? Are we talking about the same old solar panels we've seen before?
This is where things get really cool. Reliance is putting their money on something called heterojunction technology, HJT for short. They say it will make their panels 26% more efficient.
26% more. That's a huge difference. But I'm guessing they're not stopping there. What else are they cooking up?
You know it. They're already looking at even newer technology, things like perovskites, which could be even more efficient than HJT. They're all about pushing the limits of what's possible with solar.
Perovskites. That sounds like something straight out of Star Trek. It's incredible to see a company going all in on the future of solar like this. It gives me hope.
Me too. But it's not just about the panels. Remember that integrated solar value chain we talked about? That includes developing advanced battery storage solutions too.
Ah, battery storage. That's the holy grail, right? I mean, solar's great, but what happens when the sun goes down?
Exactly. That's why Reliance is building battery manufacturing facilities right alongside the solar panel factory. They want to be able to store that energy and use it whenever they need it.
They're really trying to build this whole renewable energy ecosystem. It's amazing.
And they're not even stopping there. They're even looking into backward integration.
Now, there's another jargon term. What in the world is backward integration?
It means they'd eventually produce their own battery cells and even the chemicals they need to make those cells. It's about as vertically integrated as you can get.
Wow. Talk about controlling the supply chain from start to finish. It sounds like they're building a renewable energy powerhouse.
That's a great way to put it. But it's not just about solar and batteries either. Reliance is looking at other clean energy sources too, like green hydrogen.
Green hydrogen, what's that all about?
Green hydrogen is a clean-burning fuel that they can create using renewable sources like solar and wind. They're building a massive electrolyzer facility that will be ready by 2026 to produce it on a large scale.
And what can they do with this green hydrogen?
It's got the potential to completely change things. We could use it for transportation, industrial processes, even power our homes with it. It's a potential game changer.
It sounds like it. So instead of using fossil fuels, we could use green hydrogen instead.
That's the idea. And Reliance wants to be leading the charge.
This is all starting to sound like a sneak peek at a more sustainable future. It's pretty exciting. But it can't all be about fancy technology, right? What about the environmental and social impact of all of this? Building all these factories and infrastructure can't be good for the planet.
That's a valid concern, for sure. But Reliance seems to be taking those concerns seriously. Their push into bioenergy is a good example of that.
Bioenergy, what is that, like using plants for fuel or something?
That's part of it. They're investing in biogas plants. They want to have 55 plants up and running by 2025. These plants will take agricultural waste and other organic material and convert it into biogas that they can use instead of natural gas.
So they're creating clean energy and dealing with waste at the same time. It's a win-win.
Exactly. And they're getting a lot of that biomass from local farmers,
Mm.
which is good for the rural economy too.
Okay, so they're addressing environmental concerns, creating jobs, helping the rural economy. This is starting to sound less like a corporate strategy and more like a plan to save the world.
Well, their goals are certainly ambitious, but
Hmm.
it is refreshing to see a company thinking about sustainability so holistically.
It really is. But let's be realistic for a second here. This is all pretty amazing stuff, but it's a huge gamble too, right? What if it doesn't work out? What if this green energy thing is all hype and it flops?
You're right. There are always risks, especially when you're talking about these massive investments in brand new technology. But Reliance has a few things working in their favor.
Like what?
Well, first off, they've got the money to back it up. They can afford to make these big bets.
True. And they're playing the long game here. They're not afraid to think long term.
Exactly. Second, they've got this deep understanding of the Indian market, and they already have a huge distribution network set up. That's going to be crucial for actually deploying their energy solutions at scale.
They've got the money, the market knowledge, the distribution. What else?
And I think this is the most important part. They're not just throwing money at the problem and hoping for the best. They're investing in the research and development to make sure they're the ones leading the way in clean energy.
They're not just following the trends, they're trying to create them.
Exactly.
So it sounds like while there's definitely risk here, they're not exactly going in blind.
I wouldn't say so. They're placing a big bet, but they're being smart about it.
It's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
It's a good analogy. They're thinking several steps ahead. They're already trying to anticipate problems and figure out how to stay ahead of the curve.
I like it. All right, so we've got a company that's growing like crazy, embracing new technology and trying to make the world a better place. They're in it to win it. But here's the question I have. What does this actually mean for the average person?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the billion-dollar figures and the big promises, but how will Reliance actually impact people's day-to-day lives?
It's all connected. Reliance is betting on the future, and how well they do, it's going to have ripple effects throughout the whole economy.
Okay, but what does that mean for me? Give me an example. How could this impact our listeners?
Well, take their green energy push. If they can really pull this off, if they can actually make clean energy affordable and accessible to everyone, that's huge.
Yeah, that would be a game changer.
We're talking cleaner air, a healthier environment, maybe even lower energy bills. It could
Yeah.
make a real difference.
Okay, so that's the optimistic view. But we've also talked about the risks involved in this whole green energy gamble. What if things go south?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something everyone should be thinking about. Policymakers, investors, even everyday people. Reliance is placing a lot of faith in these new technologies, green hydrogen, advanced solar, things like that. If those technologies don't work out, or if the move to clean energy is slower than they think, it could have a huge impact.
So it's a bit of a waiting game. It's an exciting time, but there's still a lot of unknowns.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole Reliance situation so interesting to watch. They're kind of like a reflection of everything happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
Globalization, technology, and this urgent need to find sustainable solutions.
They're a company with the potential to change the world, for better or for worse.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to pay attention. What Reliance does, it could have a real impact on your life down the line. That's the key takeaway, I think.
I agree. So much to think about. We've gone from supermarkets to solar panels to like the future of energy. It's a lot. And it's got me wondering.
What's on your mind?
Well, if Reliance can really pull this off, if they can actually use their influence to, make real change in the energy sector, what's next?
Hmm. Interesting question.
What other industries could they disrupt? Could they become like the global leader in sustainable solutions, not just in India, but for everyone?
And those are some thought-provoking questions. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We don't just answer questions, we come up with new ones. It makes you think differently about the future.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, keep your eyes on Reliance Industries. This story is far from over. Who knows what they'll do next?
They might just surprise us all.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. But keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep learning. Until next time.